1 year ago tonight, when Senator John McCain suddenly announced it would be necessary for him to stop campaigning for a time so that the nation could focus on the economic crisis for which he had tried to blame his opponent, and oh, by the way, had to postpone that week's first presidential debate, then Senator Barack Obama responded that he believed, quote, it is going to be part of the president's job to deal with more than one thing at once. Our fourth story in the countdown. After 8 years of President Bush, Republicans still incredulous that a chief executive might be able to walk and chew gum at the same time, now accusing this president of putting troops in Afghanistan at risk by focusing not on them, but instead, as if it were an either-or, on health care reform. Merely the latest say-anything attack in the GOP's continuing effort to make sure there is no health care reform. You will recall that the commander-in-chief now reviewing his administration's strategy in Afghanistan. His top commander there, General Stanley McChrystal, having recommended earlier this week in a leaked memo that unless more troops are sent to that conflict, it will, quote, likely result in failure. Senator Jim Waterloo DeMint of South Carolina complained to ABCnews.com that the president is dragging his feet on the request because he has taken his eye off the ball.
The problem is the war in Afghanistan and our economy are our two biggest issues, but he's working on other issues such as health care, and he's putting off the decision on Afghanistan, which I think puts our troops at risk. So he needs to focus on priorities right now and not try to ram so many things down our throat here in Congress. He needs to address the issue of Afghanistan quickly.
We have to make one meal at a time. Time now to call in our own Jonathan Alter, senior editor at Newsweek magazine. Thank you for coming in, John.
Hi, Keith.
Questions about Afghanistan and the irony of that being the topic du jour in a moment. But is this how the GOP somehow convinces Americans that the healthcare system is not really in crisis, that it does not need to be a priority, and is anybody actually buying that?
It's a pretty lame argument. You know, I don't remember Jim DeMint saying when George W. Bush was proposing to reform Social Security a few years ago that somehow he was putting the troops at risk in Iraq because he was worried about some domestic issue. Look, the Republicans at this point are basically irrelevant to the process. I know that sounds like a harsh and definitive thing to say, but they've taken a hard right off the main highway of American politics. And the Democrats don't need their votes, and whatever noise they make is ambient noise. It's not really relevant to how any of this shakes out.
Or in this context, it's ambient noise, perhaps. You have bizarre behavior that there may not be any memory of later. And DeMint is a great example of this. There's a Harvard study that's come out that says 45,000 Americans each year are now dying because they don't have health insurance. That is 1 every 12 minutes, 5 per hour. Does that not qualify, even in the context, even ceding DeMint the idea that this is a legitimate argument and not another straw man, but does that not qualify as a stunning casualty list, if that's what we're talking about, to compete with the worst conflict imaginable? And, you know, why does Jim DeMint hate American sick people?
Well, you know, it's 10 times as many people as we lost in Iraq, 10 times as many as we lost on 9/11. Look, it's possible to overstate this. There are a lot of things that are very good about the American healthcare system. A lot of people come from other countries to get treatment here. But there are fundamental flaws that anybody who is involved in this system knows are deeply problematic. And the one that you pointed to, which is basically discrimination against sick people, that's what the status quo does. It discriminates against people and pushes them into medical bankruptcy for no other reason that they're sick. And this bill, whatever version passes, will end that. And in that sense, it's the most important civil rights legislation we've had in this country in a generation.
The political audacity of this. DeMint was the one who said that health care reform, when Obama lost on it, would be his Waterloo. So the Republicans spend the summer whipping up the politics of this situation to near revolt status. At least that's the way they'd like to portray it. And Obama is then criticized for devoting any time to it. I mean, it seems like one side starts a fight and is offended when somebody stands up to the bully in the equation. I don't understand this.
Well, you saw they said that when Wilson was reprimanded, that somehow was a distraction or taking our eye off the ball of healthcare. It took all of 5 minutes to push that through. So they're getting to the bottom of the barrel of their arguments, and I think that is a happy indicator that we are moving towards some kind of resolution. There are a lot of tough issues. There are a lot of moving parts in this bill. There is an opportunity, as Senator Rockefeller said, to, at the 11th hour, get some really important things like a public option back into this bill in conference. They also need to pay attention to insurance regulation, which has not been talked about nearly enough. You have a lot of people in this country who have been hit by 20% annual premium increases. Those increases need to be capped. There need to be rock-solid regulations that the insurance companies cannot get around, so they stop gouging people. So there are a lot of details here, and I think it's important for the press and all of us to stay on top of this and sort of follow it like the way we'd follow sports and really get into the sausage-making factory.
Last point. It's not just McCain has done this, Boehner has done this. The comparison to Afghanistan and not prioritizing it. Am I hallucinating this, or were these not the same men who enabled George Bush to take his eye off the ball and get out of Afghanistan and focus on nothing in Iraq for 7 years?
Great point. I mean, the reason that we're in the soup right now in Afghanistan is because they did not pay enough attention to it, and Barack Obama ran partly on that, and that complicates his situation right now because he did make such a big deal during the campaign of us getting distracted from the real fight in Afghanistan that it's going to be a little bit hard for him to walk away from this war.
Well, but it's a separate. Those two issues can be dealt with simultaneously. It's not either or. Yes. Jonathan Alter of Newsweek and MSNBC again. Thanks for coming in, John.
Thanks, Keith.